fact that I can say in studio on a more regular basis is former BYU national champion quarterback Blaine Fowler, our dual threat analyst. Blaine, good to have you back in Studio B.
8 minutes away now, guys. 8 minutes away.
It's fantastic.
We needed to get closer to family, so I had to get down here by Spencer and by Brian Logan, my nephews.
Always, man. I embrace it wholeheartedly. Hey, we just talked to Brett McMurphy of ESPN, and he said that Bob Bowlesby's initial, there's a 4 to 5% better chance of us getting into the college football playoff if we expand to 12, is actually like 10%. Dennis Dodds of CBS said it's 10 to 15%. So with that said, do you feel like the Big 12 expansion rumors and talk are different this time around? Because quite frankly, a lot of people have turned off the show today because they don't even want to hear about it.
I think Bourne is serious about this. And I think that Oklahoma wields a big enough bat in that league to stand up to Texas and to make something happen this time. And he's been so proactive about it this time around. Now that he has data to support his cause, and you heard that not only is it data that shows they've got a better chance to get into the championship round, that round of 4, but there are going to have scenarios that show with these 2 teams, there's this additional revenue that would come. With these 4 teams, there's this. So they're going to look at models of revenue.
Money drives everything.
And if you don't think that BYU is going to be in every one of those as the top revenue generator of all the teams from the American Athletic Conference and BYU that are being talked about for this expansion, certainly BYU is going to be the biggest revenue boost and eyes on programs boost. So they have the biggest following of any of the schools that they're talking about, not just on, backsides and seats in the stadium, but also on television ratings and all those things. BYU's a proven commodity. They have the best national reputation of any of the schools that they're talking about. So when they start to look at those financial models, BYU is going to come out on top in all of those areas. If this league is going to finally have a little foresight, if they're going to be proactive instead of reactive the way they've been.
That's crazy talk, Blaine, because they've been super reactionary.
And I think that's what's been driving Oklahoma crazy. Now remember, this league almost fell apart. The league almost lost Oklahoma and Texas to the Pac-12 because Pac-12 was thinking ahead. They were looking to expansion. They were trying to broker a deal with the 2 biggest schools in that conference and the 2 biggest revenue generators in that conference. So I think that Oklahoma and its president and faculty and AD are going, why are we always behind everybody? And they're looking right now, and the SEC has announced revenue shares from their television contract, and the Big Ten has announced, this is what our revenue share is going to be. And the Big 12 lags behind. And it's some of the most traditional football schools in history, in Texas and Oklahoma, and it doesn't sit well. And it shouldn't sit well with Texas. But Texas hasn't been very competitive in the last couple of years. And I think that that's the primary reason they don't support it. You know what? Hey, let's bring BYU in. Oh, guess what? They just thumped us.
We're 1-4 against BYU all time.
Yeah, do we really want them in? Texas doesn't have a problem with revenue. Their merchandising and their fan base is second to none in the country. So it's the one school in the league that doesn't need any additional revenue. And they haven't even had a sniff of playing in the championship game in the last couple of years. It's been a program that's been down. So, of course, they don't support it. I love Oklahoma. And you know what? I love the fact that Oklahoma's going, let's bring great teams in. Bring it on. We're not afraid to play anybody, and we need more good teams in this conference.
All right, Blaine. So true or false, the Big 12 will make the decision to expand this summer. Is it going to happen or not?
I think after the president's meeting, they'll come out and they'll talk about that they've made the decision to expand. Now, I don't know what that timeline for expansion will be, but I do think that there's enough ammunition this time that they're going to make a decision. And here's the other thing I don't know. After all these discussions and looking at all these financial models, do they really get ahead of it this time and go, you know what, we really believe strongly based on our research that there's going to be 5 16-team leagues 5 or 6 years from now? Let's not wait and pick up the scraps like we've been doing. Let's get ahead of it and expand now and leave very few good teams left for the Pac and for the SEC and these schools that are at 14 or 12 right now. So that'll be the big question to me. Do they decide to just go full bore and add up to 16, or do they just go to 12 for now and at least get 2 good teams in that?
Do they try and pluck from some other Power 5 conferences from the ACC? Could they do something like that? There's so much involved there. But if you think that what Blaine Fowler is saying is crazy, and I don't, by the way, I think it's fantastic.
Nothing you say is crazy, by the way.
Dennis Dodd, CBS, said the following couple of days ago on Twitter. Since March, Big 12 athletic directors have seen scheduling models for the future that include 8 and 9 conference games and a 16-team league.
Yeah, and
it's being discussed.
It is. And you want to what? If they do this, they need to lock these teams in contractually with their television rights like the ACC did this last time around. So if you need to lock teams in so they sign the contract that says, if we leave the new Big 12, the television rights for our home games still stay with the Big 12. That is a huge discouragement to anybody that thinks about leaving. And the ACC's contracts now with their expanded league have a lot of teeth in them. You know, and I think that Notre Dame's going to end up joining the ACC for all sports before this is all said and done. That's the alignment. That's where they're going with that. And so I don't think you got a great chance to take anybody from the ACC. The SEC, everybody in that conference thinks it's the greatest conference in the history of college sports. and so who are you going to take? So you better go right now. And you better get BYU, who has a national reputation, and you better get one other. At least go to 12. And that team, I mean, who's the best? I don't know. Is it Cincinnati? Geographically, they make sense. Basketball program is really good.
Momentum seems to be on their side.
Yeah, and they've lobbied actively for it. And they may make the most sense to bring in with BYU. If you're going to do something, at least go get those two right now.
Okay, so looking specifically at BYU, if BYU gets into the Big 12, it will be because of what? And if BYU doesn't get in, it will be because of what?
If they get in, it will be because they bring the most revenue of all the schools they're looking at, and because they bring the biggest fan base of all the schools they're looking at. Those would be the two primary reasons why you'd be very interested in BYU. If they don't get in, it would be because they're worried about the other sports and the no Sunday play policy. But I don't think that's too big.
Can be worked.
I don't think that's
around.
too big a thing to overcome. But the perception of that may cause some discussion and some problems. And there's a lot of misconception about what BYUtv and BYU's broadcasting network brings. I think that if BYU does this right and they sell it right to the league, they can sell that as a big, huge positive instead of what may be perceived by some in the league as a negative. They've been beat down by Texas and their network. I think BYU could come in and say, look at the WCC. Our network does the conference tournament. We have a good relationship with our member universities. If you want to start a network, BYUtv can be part of that, and not only that, they can teach you how to put the infrastructure in place and how to get distribution and how to do all of that from the ground up. It can be sold as a positive instead of a negative, but I still think there are some universities in that league that think that that's a thing that they have to overcome. I think BYU can overcome both of those things, but those would be the two things that would be sticking points that would have to be talked about.
Fantastic stuff, Blaine, and we always appreciate the progressive thinking that we hope the Big 12 is now carrying into these meetings.
I'm ready to go negotiate on BYU's behalf.
Hey, we've got a few days before game number 1, right?
Countdown to the Wildcats.
122 days away before BYU and Arizona kick off the 2016 college football season. Plenty of time for Blaine Fowler to negotiate BYU's trip into the Big 12.
I'm going to get it done. And you know what? All of our other sports will be really good in that league.
Soccer, volleyball,
everyone.
Basketball.
Hey, our baseball team's now playing at Big 12 level. Come
let's
on,
go,
we can get this
man.
thing done. Let's do it.
It makes way too much sense. Just get it done.
Blaine, thanks for the time, man.
You bet, guys.
Uncle B in Studio B. Why do you feel the Big 12 expansion rumors are different this time?